there, I thought I was supposed to meet Raymond out here in the forest for my latest death match between the Canon Rebel T4i and the Nikon D3100. And I thought I was supposed to meet him out here by... Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. You okay?
I meant to do that.
Sure you did. Okay, I'll talk to you guys in a minute. Welcome to Deathmatch.
Last time on Deathmatch, look what happened to the loser. Ooh, that hurts. Bad.
Let me start this off by laying the ground rules. Rule number 1, I make the rules. Rule number 2, that's it. I make the rules. So, the first competitor in today's death match is a camera that I've had for a while. It's my Nikon D3100 with the 35mm f1.8G lens. Now Raymond, what did you bring to the table today?
I brought the Canon Rebel T4i. I have it outfitted in the 40mm f2.8 pancake lens.
Let's rumble. Whoa. Don't worry, D3100. You have some tricks up your sleeve too. Now I know that the Nikon D3100 and the Canon Rebel T4i are not exact competitors. But you know what? There really aren't any exact competitors in the DSLR market. You know, they're different brands, and every company is making their cameras for a different client. So, let's get started.
Let me talk a little more about this topic. Both of these DSLRs are considered to be in the entry-level category. Nikon has introduced a successor to the D3100, the D3200, but the D3100 is still available. The T4i is the latest and greatest in Canon's Rebel line, but there are still previous models available. The similarity is this. These cameras are amongst the available entry-level DSLRs that a person would consider when purchasing their first DSLR. To the camera manufacturers, the purpose of these cameras is to pull new photographers in, to expose the user to the benefits of their brand's DSLR system, and then how easily the user can engage in some more advanced techniques. And ultimately, for that user to experience the difference with a DSLR and go further and further into their chosen system with new lenses, new bodies, new accessories. So a part of how I evaluated these cameras is how they accomplish that purpose.
Now we're headed out. It is Raymond, me, the Nikon D3100, the Canon Rebel T4i, both of our bikes, and we're headed out on a Wild West style deathmatch mountain biking adventure.
Everyone likes to talk megapixels. Personally, modern DSLRs have reached the point for me that I don't even worry about this feature. They all exceed the minimum number of pixels that I would find acceptable in a camera. But let's go over the specs of these two. Both of these DSLRs have a cropped sensor. The D3100 has 14 megapixels and the T4i has 18 megapixels. Both produce extremely crisp images. There is little practical difference between the two. However, the T4i gets the nod with 18 megapixels. Point for Canon T4i. Ease of use and menu operation is very important to me, and it's definitely important to a first-time DSLR buyer. Neither camera has as many external buttons and dials as the more expensive DSLRs, though the T4i definitely has more buttons on the body than the D3100. Though the T4i has more buttons for changing some settings, both bodies have an info button, which brings up a screen displaying how the camera is set. You can even make changes to some of the settings, like image quality, white balance, and ISO, with just an additional button press. A ding against the T4i regarding ease of use is the fact that I have to press an additional button to move the focus point. Both cameras have plenty of scene modes, plus the standard shooting modes, program mode, aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual mode. For the user that is ready to move beyond auto or the scene modes, but isn't quite ready to take the plunge into the more advanced shooting modes, both cameras have an option. On the D3100, you have guide mode, where the camera takes the user through setting the camera up to achieve the desired result. It explains what it is doing as well. For example, you can choose to soften backgrounds. You are then told about how you would achieve that result using aperture priority mode. Then it allows you to choose the aperture and reminds you to use a lower f number to blur the background. Then you can start shooting or look at more settings like picture control or exposure compensation. For each of these, it will explain to the user what it is doing. The equivalent on the T4i is Creative Auto mode. When in Creative Auto, you can press the Q button and change the ambiance of the image, like standard or vivid, how blurry the background is, the drive mode, and the flash mode. But it doesn't explain what the camera is doing to achieve those things or why. You can enable Feature Guide in the menus, which pops up a small explanation of what you're doing, but it still doesn't explain what you should do to achieve those results when not in Creative Auto. This category is difficult to referee because each camera has its strengths in this area. While the Canon T4i has more buttons on its body to make changes to settings, you can make the same changes on either camera's info screen. There are two things that pull the D3100 ahead of the T4i in the category: the guide mode that teaches the entry-level user as it sets the camera, and the lack of an additional button press to change the focus area. Point for Nikon D3100. Let's talk about size and ergonomics. Both of these bodies are small and lightweight. The T4i is a touch larger and heavier, but the difference is negligible. Both cameras have a good rubbery grip, like so, for your right hand, and a nice rubbery thumb pad on the back. The bottom line is that they're both lightweight and easy to handle. Tie, point for both. When you're working in darker conditions, high ISO performance becomes paramount. All cameras suffer from image degradation in the form of noise as the ISO increases. However, a little bit of noise can totally be worth it if the shot could not otherwise be captured. The Nikon D3100 isn't deficient at all in low light. It's pretty average by today's standards. On the other hand, the T4i is excellent in low light, with much less noise visible at high ISO. It can also go up to ISO 6400, while the D3100 only goes up to 3200. The D3100 does have high 1 and high 2, but they're very noisy, so this category is an easy choice. Point for Canon T4i. Who doesn't love the satisfying click, click, click of the camera taking photos in rapid succession in burst mode? Theoretically, we all want our cameras to take as many photos as possible in a burst. But we don't all want to shell out the dough for the most expensive and fast DSLR bodies. Nor do we really need to. So let's see how these two cameras stacked up on the trail. I set them both up similarly using continuous autofocus, continuous shooting, shutter priority with a shutter speed of 1/500th, and I used the center focus point. I was shooting in JPEG, and I had duplicate memory cards in each. I also had a prime lens on each of them as well. Let's go to the Nikon D3100 first.
Oh, D3100 doing pretty good. Whoa, slowing down.
And now let's take a look at the Canon T4i.
Uh-oh, slowing down a little bit.
So that was interesting. If you just held the shutter release button down for a second, you would think that the T4i kicked the D3100's you-know-what. However, if you hold down the button a little longer, the T4i's buffer fills up, slowing it down much sooner than the D3100. In my experiment, the D3100 took 29 photos in the 12 seconds it took for Raymond to bite to me. It started slowing down after 10 seconds and 27 shots. The T4i captured 20 shots in the 10 seconds it took for Raymond to get to me the second time around, but it slowed way down after about 3.5 seconds or 12 shots. Which is better? I prefer to be able to capture a bunch of shots in a quick burst. I'm typically not going to hold my shutter release button down for longer than a few seconds in one burst. So, for me, the T4i edges out the D3100 because it can take more photos in a quick burst. Point for Canon T4i. Autofocus and focus tracking. The D3100 has single servo autofocus, where the camera focuses once when you half press the shutter release button. Continuous servo autofocus, where the camera will continue to focus until the photo is taken. And auto servo autofocus, where the camera automatically selects where you need. It also has 3 autofocus area modes. Single point, where the user selects the focus point, and that's where the camera focuses. dynamic area, where the user selects the focus point, but the camera will use information from the surrounding focus points to focus when in continuous servo or auto servo. And it also has auto area, where the camera automatically detects the subject and selects the focus point in auto servo and continuous servo. In addition, when shooting in auto servo and continuous servo, there is a 3D tracking option where the camera will attempt to lock on to the original subject and follow it around the frame. The T4i has one-shot autofocus, where the camera focuses once you half press the shutter release button. AI servo autofocus, where the camera will continue to focus in the chosen focus area until the photo is taken. And AI focus autofocus, where the camera will decide which of those you need. Then, the T4i has additional tracking options, but only in live view. I rarely use live view, so I've got to go with the Nikon D3100 on this one. Point for D3100, video capability. Normally, I like video cameras for video and still cameras for still pictures. But sometimes it's nice to have video capability in my still camera, so let's talk about it. The D3100 was one of the first DSLRs to have continuous autofocus during video, which is great, except it hunts around a lot and you can hear the focus motor on the video. And you have no external microphone jack. The T4i does have an external microphone jack, and it also has continuous autofocus during video. And it is less bad than the D3100's video autofocus, but it's still not good. Both cameras have the ability to shoot video in 1080p, but the T4i gets the edge because it can shoot 1080p with 30 frames per second, while the D3100 can do 1080p with 24 frames per second. Point for Canon T4i. The T4i has two special features that deserve their own category. First, the T4i has this flip-out screen, which you actually saw Raymond showing off at the beginning of the video. This allows you to easily shoot below your eye level in live view by just flipping up the screen. It also acts as a protector of the screen when not in use, because you can just turn it around and flip it closed. I should mention that Nikon has a camera in their entry-level lineup that does have a flip-out screen, the D5100. However, the D3100 here does not. The second special feature that is unique to the Canon T4i is the touch screen. You can use it for almost anything that you would do with the LCD screen. The winner of this category is not really a surprise. Point to Canon T4i. Cost is a factor in any purchasing decision. In this comparison, there is a big difference. For the Nikon D3100 with the 18 to 55 kit lens, you will currently pay about $500. For the Canon T4i with its 18 to 55 kit lens, you'll now pay almost $800. Since most beginners aren't even sure that they're going to use their camera very much, the lower cost alternative would definitely get the nod. Point to Nikon D3100. And that's it! The Canon T4i beats out the Nikon D3100 in this death match. Although the D3100 has a few stellar features like focus tracking, guide mode, and lower cost, the T4i's combination of speed, low light capability, and special features makes it the survivor today. Now that my death match has been determined, I have to talk to you about how your death match may have ended differently. The simple fact that the D3100 is much less costly than the T4i could be the deciding factor for you. Or you might want that flip-out touchscreen and be willing to pay top dollar for it. Everyone has different priorities, and your death match may have ended differently than mine. If you are looking into these two DSLRs, or any DSLRs, take what I've talked about here and make it your own for your purchasing decision. Sadly, there can only be one winner of this death match, and the loser, this D3100, has been banished from the premises. So I'm boxing it up. You know, D3100, we've had some good times, but it's time for you to hit the road. Don't worry though, she's going to a good home.